Brendan hunched deeper inside the puffer jacket as the wind serrated his body like some old and desiccated vegetable. He looked up at the waning day. The sky was a murky grey, blanketed by cloud cover. That was a plus. Might buy him some time. He pressed the doorbell again and, hearing nothing, blew on his frozen digits and stuffed them back into their pockets. His panicked mind was yelling at him to flee, to run somewhere else, to find another disreputable source while he still had the time. How could he have been so arrogant as to leave it this late? He was stupid. He was just a stupid kid, like Monica said, and now he was paying for it. He turned indecisively, still not sure of his will to cut and run, but tipping further that way by the second. From within the bowels of the apartment, he heard a muffled acknowledgement and the slow tramp of footfalls down a corridor. The door opened and Jez appeared from the half-gloom, eyes red and deep-set against his flat, sallow face.
Bro, I heard you the first time. You're gonna wake my mum up. Fuck.
He turned, and Brendan followed him into the dark, narrow hallway. They walked into the living room. The only light was the glow of a flat-screen TV, with the word pause emblazoned on it in garish neon green. Without further acknowledgement, Jez climbed into a recliner, picked up the PS5 controller, and leaned back. The screen burst into life as a muscled hand reloaded and cocked a large black rifle. Brendan picked his way across the detritus on the floor. Cheetos packets, the occasional drained McDonald's cup, and a series of raunchy teen slasher DVD cases from the aughts, many open and missing their eponymous disc. He eventually found his way and sat on the gritty chenille love seat. They both said nothing for 24 seconds. Then Jez said,
So, fuck you calling at 6 p.m. for?
Brendan was tempted to say, you know why, because Jez did, but he needed to keep the guy on side.
I need some more Lunadestrine,
he mumbled.
For real?
Jez asked, his face twisting into a poor duplication of a smile. His eyes did not leave the TV upon which the military cipher on the screen was dispatching gas-masked terrorists.
You really think I have loonies this time of month? Good luck, bro.
No, but you do, Brendan said calmly. He hated this game. I know you have them. You told me you had them 2 days ago.
Yeah, nah, but that was like 2 days ago, bro.
The eyes flicked across the screen as his fingers danced over the controls. Reload, shoot, pistol whip, reload, shoot.
I didn't say I still had them. A lot can happen in 2 days. Connects dry up, people get thirsty, you know.
He trailed off. Come on, Jez, Brendan said, involuntarily letting a note of irritation into his voice. You know I need them. You told me you'd have them. I can't get out of the city in time, and I can't afford for my place to get wrecked. My landlord would boot me like that. Brendan looked down and realized his fists were clenched so hard that they had turned white. He eyed the long brown strands on his forearms and forced himself to relax. The cavalcade of violence on the screen ceased as the pause returned. Jez leaned back in the recliner and turned his head towards his guest.
Yeah, you still didn't pay me from last time, but I can't just give out freebies, even to a friend.
That last word was a fiction, on the same level as Jez being an actual counter-terrorist operative. Please, Jeremy.
It's Jez.
Jez cut him off.
No one's called me Jeremy since high school. Except my mom.
Sorry, Jez. I told you I'd pay you on Friday when my paycheck comes in. I said I would then, and I will. I've never not paid you before. It's just that I've let it run a little too late this time, and I didn't think. He let out a long sigh that he hoped conveyed the right ratio of tiredness and humility. Just help me out, man. Please, just help me out. I'm literally begging you. The dealer blew a contemplative raspberry that Brendan assumed, hoped, represented acquiescence.
Okay, bruh. I'll give you shit, but you gotta do something for me, yeah?
Relief flooded Brendan's body like a burst dam.
Absolutely, mate. You name it.
As though it was a magnet, Jez's eyes returned to the game.
Okay, so old mate round the corner in 2B Jameson. He's got a pretty long tab, eh? Like long and getting longer. Similar to you, but like 3 months down the road, right? I've been asking him for the cash for fucking ages, but he's always like busy or he's out or he just has to pop out and get the cash or some shit. You know how it is.
The eyes swiveled to him again, the bright green of Jez's irises clashing violently with the overtaxed capillaries. You want me to collect on a debt?
Oh, see, bro, you have such a good way with words. Real, like, concise, eh?
Once he was outside the house, Brendan immediately regretted his decision to collect for Jez. 2B Jameson was even dingier than Jez's place, if that were possible. It was the bottom level of a duplex. Very much the B in 2B. Once again, he considered just walking away, trying to find some Lunadestrine somewhere else. There was a good chance he could get some off Cecile, who was in his support group. It's not that the stuff was hard to get, it's just when you needed it, you really fucking needed it. He took out his phone. His thumb hovered over the call button, tempted to press it. What kind of irresponsible idiot would she think he was if he called her this close to tied, begging for pills? Probably the same idiot who was filling in as a substitute debt collector for his piece of shit dealer. Ultimately, pride got the better of him. Fuck it. He rang the bell.
Hello?
The voice that answered was jittery and nervous. Brendan froze. What was he supposed to say? How did you encourage someone who owed you money by proxy to let you into their house?
Is anyone there?
The voice said, a little more stridently. Brendan cleared his throat.
Hi,
He answered weakly.
I'm a friend of, Jez's. I just want to come in and have a little talk. Nothing, bad.
Absolute weak sauce. He may as well have just said, "Please, sir, could you give me the money you owe my dealer? I'd be ever so grateful. I need it for drugs, you see."
Oh.
The voice on the other side said, actually seeming less flustered.
Oh, I see. Yes, come in, please.
The flatulent tone of the buzzer rang out, and he pushed on the gate. Once at the door, he felt himself on some sort of threshold. If he did this, and it took more than 20 minutes, he likely wouldn't have time to get back. Still, Jez had told him that there were loonies. He'd even pointed to the cabinet they were in. He just had to be quick. The door opened. In front of him was a tall man with the straggly beginnings of a beard. His hair was thinning, and he was in a shabby red bathrobe with yellow trim that only just reached his knees. Brendan felt embarrassed, as though he'd just walked in on someone il flagrante. "You're a friend of Jez's," the man prompted him.
Yes, yes I am.
"I assume this is about the package." "Package? What package?" Something deep in his gut pinged that he had just gotten himself into far more than he had bargained for.
That's right. Yes, regarding the package, specifically,
He stalled.
payment for, said package.
Yes, the man nodded feverishly. "I totally understand. I apologize for my tardiness. It's just that, well, these things that get away from you." He turned, and Brendan followed him inside, looking around. The tiles were cheap, dingy white, and the ceiling was the gritty, stippled style he associated with a great aunt. The apartment was small, lightless, and grimy, though quite neat. He supposed you had to be neat living in such a cramped environment. A place for everything, and everything in its place, as Monica relished saying. The man whipped around, eyes bright. "Can I get you something? Maybe a cup of tea or water?"
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Oh, please, I insist, the man said. I've made you come all this way. The least I can do is show some hospitality.
Water's fine.
He had to think of some way to get the money, or some of the money, or at least a promissory note of the money to then wave in Jez's face. The dealer would probably still give him the loonies. He didn't want to deal with the consequences of an episode any more than Brendan would. He decided to try for a tone of earnest candor.
Look, man, I know it's been a few weeks already. To be really honest with you, Jez is getting to the end of his rope, and
Perhaps some subtle intimidation.
he's not really the sort of guy you want to piss off, believe me. Why don't you just give me some of the cash now? I can take it back to him, and that'll tide him over, huh? Trust me, this is the easiest way.
The guy nodded enthusiastically. He set the glass of water down on the table. Brendan eyed it. He suddenly realized he was actually thirsty. All that running around, trying to get those pills, the icy, dry throb of winter cutting through you. He picked up the glass. The liquid had the nondescript greyish quality of unfiltered inner-city water, bubbling slightly. He took a big gulp and swallowed. It tasted rancid, like garbage bin juice, and he wrinkled his nose, putting the glass back down.
Ugh. I think you might have something in your pipes, man.
He felt it almost instantly, starting in his gut and swirling upwards through a million little dendrites of his stomach, fanning out to his limbs. They began to grow heavy, as if bearing fruit. The world was becoming fuzzy, spinning. The man was now looming over him. Night, night. He awoke on a hard surface. It wasn't the floor. It curved a little under his head. He was in a bathtub. He tried to move his hands and realized they were tied under him. Not just tied down to something. Oh no. No. He mentally searched his body and cavities for signs of interference. Mercifully, he seemed to have retained his limbs, organs, and orificial integrity. The bathroom had traded white tiles for a lurid grandma pink, bedecking both the floor and the walls. He heard humming and craned his head. The tub was tall, maybe one of those old clawfoot models.
Hey, what the fuck? What have you done to me? How long have I been here?
The humming stopped, and the man's face blotted out the light bulb, like a cloud obscuring the sun. His straggly hair dangled down, giving the cloud the impression of melting in eerie liquid drips. About an hour. It's just a little knockout serum. Fast acting, easily digestible. It's probably halfway out of your system by now. Unfortunately for you, that's not going to make a whole lot of difference.
Look, man, Brendan said, I don't know what you did or what you need, but there are easier ways to solve this than this. Just let me go. I won't tell Jez what happened. I'll just leave. You'll never hear from me again.
The man cocked his head with a girlish grimace. No, I don't think so. This is much cleaner. This way, we both disappear before anyone's the wiser. He reached back, and there was the scream of a faucet turning on. Brendan felt cold water on his feet. His bare feet. The guy had taken his fucking shoes. Somehow, this galled him even more than being tied down. People talk a big game about drowning being rough, but it's actually one of the kinder ways to go. Once you stop struggling and your body shuts down, it's supposed to be very peaceful. Less messy, too. I don't want to get your blood everywhere any more than you do. Trust me, this is the best way. With a sick feeling at the back of his throat, Brendan realized the prick was throwing his own words back in his face. This was an actual nightmare. He was going to die here, in a dirty house, with no shoes, looking up at this barely clad man in a dressing gown.
I'll scream. I'll fucking scream until the neighbors come running.
Go ahead. The man's laugh was a silvery tinkle.
Nobody lives upstairs, and the surrounding buildings are industrial.
The bathtub was filling up now, but the water was no longer cold. The guy had set it to a pleasant temperature. The apocryphal tale about frogs in boiling water came to Brendan now. The one that says they'll stay in a pot until boiling point, if they're allowed to get used to it. He knew it was a fallacy, but something about it clicked in his near-delirious state of fear. His body began to shake. He tried to calm down, to think.
I'll be here until the water gets over your head. It should be about 15 minutes. I'm happy to talk. Would you like to pray? Would you like me to read you the last rites? Why are you doing this to me?
He was crying.
Look, it's not you, all right? I'm sure you're a nice boy. Honestly, if I had my druthers, I'd rather not kill you. But I can't have anyone else coming around. If you don't show up tonight, your friend will think you've gone home. He'll stick to his video games. By the time he gets off his ass to do anything, I'll be long gone. So will you, obviously. I have a hacksaw and a suitcase out the back. Oh, no, not until you're quite done. I'm not a monster.
He giggled again in that high, argentic voice. The water was touching the bottom of his shoulders now. Brendan tried to keep his thoughts level, but it was getting harder and harder.
Jesus, this steam is getting a bit much. I'm going to pop a window. Now, look, you can scream if you want, but it will just hurt my ears and your throat, so I'd rather you didn't.
He didn't. From his position on the bottom of the tub, the water was lapping at the back of his head and shoulders. He was fighting hard to keep down the growing tide of panic. Tide. The tide. He struggled up and found that though his forearms were tied flat to something at the bottom of the bathtub, some inset rings or something. Jesus, had this guy commissioned this bathtub? He could actually sit up a fair way. Enough to see the window. It was mottled glass, one of those windows that opened up at an angle, designed to let the steam out when one had a shower or a bath.
Oh, he's feisty,
the man said, clearly and unapologetically enjoying himself now. Brendan wondered if he didn't have a camera nearby filming this shit.
I won't scream, but could you open the window a bit more, please? I want to at least see the sky one more time before I die. Refreshing, the guy said,
seemingly genuinely impressed.
Certainly, I can give you a bit of sky. Would you like me to sing too? I do a mean somewhere over the rainbow. That's where you're going anyway.
The window opened a little more, and he could see a touch of sky. It was dark now, but he could still make out the cloudy grey of late afternoon. Fuck.
That better?
If he hadn't been scared out of his fucking mind, Brendan might have been confused by the apparent civility of this man who was clearly bent on murdering him.
Much,
he gasped. The next few minutes were simply spent waiting. They talked.
Do you have family?
The man asked.
Just an older sister,
Brendan said. It was best to keep him talking.
That and a support group. They're kind of like a second family.
The water was up to the top of his raised forearms now. They were beginning to ache. Maybe he could just dip quickly into the water and then come back up for air, give them a rest. Something told him, though, once he went under, the man would make sure that he did not come back up for air. So he kept them sustained. He kept staring out the window. Come on. Come on. Just a sliver. Just a taste.
I'm sorry to hear you won't be able to see them again,
the man said, and there was at least a patina of genuine sorrow over his febrile excitement.
What sort of support group is it? Drugs? You've come from Jersey, so I presume it's drugs. Not drugs,
he said, grunting with the effort of holding himself upright. The man swarmed over to him, looking down.
It's okay to let go, you know. Once you start, once you get over the initial panic, you won't even mind. It will be like going to sleep.
He put his hands over Brendan's shoulders. Not pressing yet, but clearly with the intention.
What was it? The group. You can tell me. I want your final secret. Please. I'm listening.
There was a kind of feverish anticipation in the man's words now, preparing for the grand finale. Brendan felt him start to exert pressure downwards.
Just a little longer.
He said through gritted teeth.
Just let me look at the sky a little while longer. No.
The man sighed, sounding almost kind.
No, your time has come. So tell me, what was the group for?
Then, like a sword unsheathed from its hilt, the cloud cover passed, and the moon, in all her tragic, glorious beauty, passed from out behind the cloud.
Not drugs,
Brendan said, his voice shaking.
Lycanthropy.
The man's eyes widened, and he darted for the window, but it was too late. Brendan felt the old feeling, the unbuckling of the senses, pieces of his body growing like a hard-on, but in every direction. He barely needed to tug at the steel pipes in the bathtub, and they came free. They popped like twigs off a tree, sending water gushing. The ropes were even easier. A mere scratch from his now rapidly growing claws shredded the nylon, and he stood upright in the bath. His head nearly touched the ceiling. He towered over the bathrobed man, who was now scrambling for the exit. Brendan blocked his way with one giant paw.
What are you going to do with me?
The man asked.
Honestly?
Said Brendan. His voice was now a hoarse mimicry of what it had been just seconds ago. Part wheezing groan, part bark.
I have no idea.
For the second time that evening, he blacked out. He woke up shivering, completely naked except for some scraps still wrapped around him. A stray beam of sunlight caressed his face through the window. He checked himself again. Still all there. That was the first thing they taught you in group after the tide. Check everything was still intact. His second thought was, shit, I'm glad he took my shoes off. He looked around at the bomb site all around him. That's what a wear shift was, really. A ticking, biological time bomb. He was lucky that it had worked out this time. For him, anyway. Around him, the place was a strewn wreckage of lower middle-class suburbia. The very bath that he had been in had been split and cracked down the middle. No mean feat given how thick the ceramic was. There was water everywhere, and a trail of blood leading out of the room. A thrill of fear shot through him. Maybe the guy had escaped. Maybe he was coming back. He began a frantic, if cautious, search of the house. He found some clothes, musty and old, but wearable and close to his size. What he could not find was the man or his dead body. Returning to the living room, Brendan saw the table, or what was left of it. Set in the middle of a splintered mess of wood, he saw a hand. A severed human hand. It was not attached to anything, and it was certainly not moving. He grimaced. He did not know much about his beast form from a psychological perspective, but what he did know was that it was no fool, and it had a twisted sense of humour. This smacked of a sick prank. Bizarrely, there was an old camcorder pointed at the hand and the table. A crude note, "Watch me," was scrawled into the wall above it. He did not follow the instructions. What he did now was throw up in the toilet. He searched the apartment and found what he could only assume was the package. A kilogram of white powder. For a second, he was tempted to leave it where it was. Just get the hell out of here. But leaving a piece of further incriminating evidence, even one unrelated to what was almost certainly a manslaughter scene, was not his idea of smart behaviour. He realised now that this had not been some light errand. Jez knew what it was. It was the reason he'd even been there in the first place. And the dealer was wily enough to want to get a wear-shifting individual as far away from his personal property as possible. Pills be damned. He was beginning to think that Jez had known just how dangerous the original inhabitant of 2B Jameson was as well. He had likely sought to cancel one problem out with another. Delicately, Brendan placed both the camcorder and the package in a backpack he found lying around. When he got up the gumption, he would watch the video. He had a feeling he would not enjoy what he saw, but it might answer some questions. Affixing the rucksack over one shoulder, he exited the building. As he was shutting the door, he heard an "Oi!" He turned to see Jez, fingers pushing through the bars of the gate, looking with that same flat, sallow expression.
Have yourself a little sleepover, did you, bruh?
Yeah, something like that. Jez chewed a piece of gum contemplatively.
I reckon you've got something of mine.
Brendan shook his head. I don't think so, Jeremy.
Hey,
Jez said, pointing at him.
I told you. Only my mum calls me Jeremy. Now let me the fuck in so I can get my shit back.
Brendan made a charade of contemplating it.
Nah, I think you've gotten plenty out of this situation already.
He made a show of closing the door hard. It locked with a crisp click.
What the fuck, bro?
Jez's hands went to the air in a flamboyant show of irritation.
I thought we were friends.
We were never friends. You were just my dealer. Now you're not even that.
Brendan walked up to the gate. Jeremy instinctively backed up. Brendan opened it and walked out, strolling away from him.
I'll call the cops,
Jeremy said finally. Oh yeah? Said Brendan, not looking back. And what will you tell them, Jeremy? That was the last time he ever saw or heard from Jez.
This is author A.R. Eldridge. Thanks so much for listening to this story. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate you doing one thing, and that's letting someone who might also enjoy it know about the show. Thanks again.